At 6:12 a.m., Daniel Carter sat on the edge of his bed, shoes already on, staring at the floor. The house was quiet, too quiet. His wife and daughter were still asleep. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the world hadn't asked anything of him. But Daniel already felt tired. This wasn't the kind of tired that a good night's sleep could fix. It was a deeper exhaustion, the kind that comes from living your entire life on autopilot. Daniel was 40. He wasn't young enough to believe his time was unlimited, but he wasn't old enough to just accept that this was all life had to offer. He worked as an insurance adjuster in suburban Texas. His job was stable. It was predictable. It was respectable. But inside, something felt deeply unfinished. From the outside, Daniel's life checked all the right boxes. The mortgage was paid on time. A reliable SUV was parked in the driveway. The family had dinner together most nights. When people saw him, they'd say, "You're doing great, man," and Daniel would smile every single time. But deep down, he felt like he was slowly breaking a promise he had once made to himself. He couldn't remember the exact words of that promise anymore, but he could still feel its weight. That morning, as Daniel tied his shoes, a memory hit him out of nowhere. Suddenly, he was 17 years old again, sitting on the hood of his very first car with a notebook open in his lap. Inside that notebook, he'd written down a declaration: "I will never settle for a life I didn't choose." Back then, Daniel believed that pure effort would guarantee a life of fulfillment. But life, as it often does, taught him otherwise. Responsibilities crept in quietly, fear showed up, polite and patient. And his dreams didn't just disappear, they went into hiding, waiting. Later, that same day, Daniel picked up his daughter from school. As she climbed into the back seat, she asked him a question that landed harder than he expected. "Dad, what did you want to be when you were a kid?" The question hung in the air. Daniel hesitated. I'm doing it," he said finally, the words feeling hollow. His daughter frowned. "But do you like it?" Silence filled the car. In that moment, Daniel realized something terrifying. He was teaching his daughter that liking your life was optional. He was showing her that you just do what you're supposed to do, and your own happiness doesn't really factor into the equation. That night, long after everyone else had gone to bed, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table. He whispered into the darkness, "If I keep living like this, I'm lying to her." And what was even worse, he was lying to himself. Daniel didn't have a dramatic breakdown. He didn't smash anything or yell at the sky. He had something much more dangerous. He had clarity. He found a fresh notebook, opened it to the first page, and wrote a single sentence: "I owe my family the courage I keep postponing." See, Daniel wasn't chasing fame or some get-rich-quick scheme. What he wanted was alignment. He wanted the person he was on the inside to match the life he was living on the outside. Years ago, he had loved woodworking. He loved creating things with his hands, turning raw material into something beautiful and meaningful. He'd abandoned it because it wasn't practical. But now, practicality felt less like a safety net and more like a cage. The hardest part, as it always is, was starting. But he started quietly. He didn't make a big announcement. He didn't tell everyone his grand plans. He just started waking up a little earlier. He started building things in the garage after work. He was learning all over again slowly, clumsily. His first projects were pretty awful. He made crooked shelves and uneven tables. There were mistakes everywhere. But for the first time in years, something inside him felt awake. He wasn't just escaping the stress of his day job anymore. He was building confidence, one flawed piece of wood at a time. Of course, about 3 months in, reality punched back hard. The bills didn't care about his newfound passion. Time felt even tighter than before. The old exhaustion started to creep back in. Daniel came very close to quitting. One night, he was standing in the garage, surrounded by all his unfinished projects, and he just laughed a bitter laugh. "This is so irresponsible," he said out loud to no one. But then he remembered something important. Quitting now wouldn't protect his family, it would teach them fear. It would show his daughter that when things get hard, you run back to what's safe, even if it makes you miserable. So he didn't abandon his dream. He adjusted. He set smaller goals. He created better systems. He learned to be more patient with himself and with the process. Then came the moment of validation. One Saturday morning, Daniel took a few of his best pieces to a local market, and he sold one, his very first custom piece. The money was small, barely enough to cover the cost of the wood, but the pride was massive. A stranger shook his hand and said, "You have a real talent for this. You should keep doing it." Daniel just nodded, but this time he actually believed it. That night, his daughter pointed at a small, elegant box on the counter. "Did you make that?" she asked. "Yes," Daniel said. She smiled. That's cool. That one word cool meant more to him than any promotion he had ever received at his job. It was the only approval he ever really needed. Over time, Daniel's side work started to grow. It wasn't fast, and it definitely wasn't easy. But it was steady. He had to learn about marketing. He learned about customer service, about pricing, about failure. He failed a lot, but he kept going. Eventually, he was able to reduce the hours at his insurance job. And then, 1 year later, he made a decision that his 17-year-old self would have recognized. Daniel chose the life he had once promised himself. Not because it was safe, but because it was honest. The real lesson here is that Daniel didn't abandon his responsibilities. He embraced leadership. He took leadership over his choices. He took leadership over the example he was setting for his daughter. He took leadership over his future. Because the most powerful promise you'll ever make is the one you finally decide to keep. So, if you feel stuck right now, if you feel like you're living on autopilot, hear this: your dreams aren't irresponsible, ignoring them is. You don't need anyone's permission to choose your life. You just need courage. And you need to practice that courage daily, in small ways, until it becomes who you are. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.